Africans Rising is a Pan-African movement of people, organizations, social movements across the continent and the diaspora. We are currently mobilizing our African Liberation Week, which is in commemoration of the 25th May, the formation of the Organization of African Unity 60 years ago. And as you know, this is the 60th anniversary of the formation of the OAU, now AU, and this year's mobilization is under the theme Borderless Africa. And the purpose of the Borderless Africa campaign, as was adopted by movement members last year, is to push for us to be able to move across Africa as Africans without requiring any visa or any border restrictions. So the objectives of the campaign is the removal or abolishment of visa requirements for intra-African travel, the removal of any border restrictions for African travel, and the mass rollout of the African passport, including making it available to our people in the diaspora. Today's press conference was just to launch the African Liberation Week and to outline some of the activities we have. Currently, we have about 500 activities that are lined up in 54 countries across the world that are happening, 48 countries in Africa and 6 countries in the diaspora. We are having activities ranging from peaceful demonstrations to football matches to musical concerts to film shows to town halls, people's assemblies, and all manner of activities happening across the continent and the diaspora. I think the moment has to be realized, has to be recognized as one that brings African people together, not to respond to anything or to react, but to be proactive in pushing an agenda that benefits us as Africans, so that we can create our own narrative and create our own future that is not bound by the future of other peoples, but by our own future and our children's future and their children, our children's children's future. Because this is the land that God has bestowed upon us. This is the land that Providence has made available to us, and made available in that land all the resources that are needed to build a prosperous society and to build a continent where there is no lack or there is no want. However, with the abundance of resources, we are still poor, and in the abundance of water, we are still thirsty. This is not what God wants us to do, and we must step up to the challenge, and we must step up to the plate and ensure that we are harnessing these resources for our own benefit, unlike what is currently happening, where our resources are exploited for the benefit of others whilst we remain poor. And so this is the bigger picture, the background behind the mobilization that Africans Rising does. And we believe that with a borderless Africa, with free movement, with a united Africa, there is nothing that can stop the giant of Africa. And we would achieve this vision in our lifetime without fear or favor. I think that for countries that are yet to ratify the free movement protocol, we can only call on them to do so immediately, because it is an affront to us that we prioritize the movement of goods over the movement of people, whereas it is people who move goods. Goods don't move on their own. Services, skills, labor, all of these things can be unlocked, and there are so many studies, including by the African Development Bank, by the African Union, and so many independent researchers that shows very clearly the prospects of how free movement of people in borderless Africa can benefit African people in this century. And so we call on all African countries to ratify the free movement protocol. The only way that the AFCFTA can benefit us or can be harnessed to its full potential is by accompanying it with the free movement of people. That is the only way. And it's not just me saying it. It is everybody who has had occasion to study the AFCFTA, to study international trade, and to study the history of Africa vis-a-vis the geopolitical whirlwinds that are happening in Africa, in the world currently. So they should all ratify it. But more importantly, we call on citizens of Africa, because in most cases you have decisions at the AU level that hang on the shelves that do not necessarily trickle down to the people. So we call on African people themselves to show interest and to ensure that we push our political class to build that political will in them. Political class, in most cases, follows the votes. And so if the people push for it, they will budge. And therefore, African people are called upon to give attention to this and to push for that political will, so that we can, for once in for so long a history, be able to set our own agenda for our own interest. We want visa requirements to be removed. In other words, anybody traveling from one African country to another should not require a visa. That is one. Two, we want border restrictions to be removed. Right now, people wanting to trade across African borders are being harassed by immigration officials. Border patrol agencies are being taken through all manner of restrictions that are not that are preventing them from being able to trade across the borders. Removal of these border restrictions would immediately catapult trade and ensure that economic development is, accelerated. We also want the African passport to be rolled out on mass basis, so that it is not only AU officials or diplomats who must have access to the African passport. It must be rolled out so that we all, as citizens of Africa, will have that African passport, including those of our brothers and sisters in the diaspora, because we need that identity. We need to show the oneness in our identity and the collectivity that brings strength and power.